Hey everyone, you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and I am your host, Andrew Davis. And before I introduce my guest, I would like to remind everyone that you need to support and you need to financially support what you love, whether it is this show, my cosplay guest, or corporate media, particularly Disney with She-Hulk. I've been saying that a lot lately. If you really like She-Hulk, you should go out and get a Disney Plus account and you should go buy the merch in that regard. But all jokes aside, you do need to economically support who you like, what you like, because without money, it doesn't get made. And so keep that in mind. And then the other thing I want to quickly announce is that I do have a comic book class coming at the end of October. So if you want to learn how to invest in comic books, and you want to learn the basics, my class is for you. But I will give everybody who wants that more details later on, and you'll be notified. It's going to be about $40 on Udemy is the class for 18 to 22 hours of my time. But enough about that, because I have with me cosplayer AMH Cosplays. So welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I am very excited to have you on for a lot of reasons. And I don't want to just tip off my hat just yet. But I am curious how you got into cosplay, because your path is fascinating. And, I think it's different than other people's.
Well, I guess you can say I was born into cosplay because my birthday's Halloween. So I kind of celebrated my birthday all the time by getting dressed up, and it just pretty much bloomed from there. I figured, why just do it on my birthday or Halloween? Just do it all the time. And over the years, it just became almost a lifestyle, actually. As I've got almost an entire room just, oh gosh, more than an entire room, because it goes past what you see behind me into my closet, into the downstairs. I've got a few.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because obviously you've been doing this for a very long time, and you've also had a very diverse, cosplay sector between anime, comics, nerddom, for lack of a better word, things that are a little bit outside the norm as far as, I guess traditional cosplays. But I kind of want to start with the anime stuff with you, because
Okay.
I'm an anime guy. I love anime. I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan. I have a Dragon Ball Z watch. I love DBZ. And you have a few Dragon Ball Z
Just a few.
cosplays. No. And what I mean by a few is a lot of cosplays, only a few characters.
Yeah, I've got about, what, 38 Bulmas, I think, at this point, plus a few of the other characters in Dragon Ball Z.
So let's start with that. So obviously you have, and I think I got like 10 or 12 of your Bulmas, picture-wise. And so how did you even decide on Bulma? Because obviously Bulma is a staple in Dragon Ball,
Ah,
Dragon Ball Z, and you have a lot of them. And the one that I kind of want to start with is what everybody knows, which is traditional Bulma.
um, well, I can sum up why I did Bulma in one word, and that's Vegeta. I am a huge Vegeta fan. Everyone who knows me admits that he's my husbando. So I've got two Vegetas on my night table. I've got my key rings are all Vegeta, 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 Vegeta. And above me, you can't see them, but I've got about 20 Vegeta Funko Pops. So that's how I started Bulma, because, my way of connecting to my favorite anime character.
So let's even talk about that a little bit, because obviously Bulma is a fascinating character. And one of the things that I like about your Bulma and your Bulmas, I guess, is how it should be said, and the different ones you've done, is you've gone through her history. And so that is what's super interesting about this, is that some cosplayers say, they'll do, Bulma from Dragon Ball, but you've done Bulma from Dragon Ball. You've done obviously this one, which is from Dragon Ball as well. And then we go into, obviously all the other stuff that you've done. And so what is that like? Because it's interesting to see how a character has evolved.
Oh, I love taking her through the ages, because she has I have never verified this, but she supposedly is the character that has the most clothing changes in all of anime. And that's why I have so many characters of her, and there's still so many I haven't done. Plan to do, bought the fabric to do it, haven't gotten to it yet. But yeah, I've taken her from day one, season one, episode one, in the pink dress, all the way through Super. You know, I've done her pregnant, I've done her as the scientist, I've done her future version for both Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super. And there's so many more, especially now with the new movie out. I mean, she was barely in it, but still, hey, there's yet another outfit to do.
Yeah, let's even talk about that too, because just to go through some of them, and obviously we have this one right here with her, and obviously she's holding a Dragon Ball. Then we got her, in that with the red dress, and her doing that. We got her right here, which I think, obviously further along. We got Boozy Bulma, which is kind of funny in a lot of ways. And so what is this like? Because it's nice to see somebody in a cosplayer do a character and actually document their history versus saying, I'm just going to do, Bulma as Dragon Ball Bulma, and then I'm going to move on to another character. It's kind of nice to see that, evolution and see, you go from episode 1, as you stated, all the way to Super. So what is that like for you? Because I think it sort of shows and it goes on the idea that you care.
She became my
girl. I don't know how to explain that any other way.
No, Bulma's my girl. I mean, actually, in the cosplay circle here in Southern Michigan, they call me the Bulma. When they don't remember my name, they call me the Bulma because I've got so many different Bulmas that I do, and she's just so much fun. She's just from day one, she's sassy and perky and she's brilliant because at 16 she's building all these amazing technological things, and as she will say it, she's the whole package. And I just find it fun to do her because she just has so much attitude, but she's sassy and smart, and just going through all her different periods from where she's just like wandering lost and ordering little Goku around to where he's like big Goku, and hey, now maybe Vegeta's kind of cute too. Oh wow, she's gonna have a baby now, and then now she's kind of got 2 kids, and she's just using the Dragon Balls to stay young. So.
Yeah, and even going into 2 more of them, obviously this, and this is I don't think this is canon.
No, not canon, but
I love it nonetheless. It's brilliant because it's the mashup of Vegeta. It's obviously the Queen of all Saiyans, referencing that. And so, what was this like? Because Dragon Ball really does allow for this to occur and mashups to occur in a very fun way.
Oh yeah.
It's sort of accepted, I feel, now in Dragon Ball, especially with Super, and nothing is off limits now in DBZ.
Oh, right. No. I mean, absolutely. Especially because so many people want to do stay in armor. This one was actually made for me by my friend Shay. And there was a lot of fittings. I had to go down to Columbus to meet up with him. And it was just fun because a lot of people have all these different ideas of where does Bulma go with Vegeta. A lot of people say, yes, they're married. Other people say, no, they're not married. Is she really the queen since he's the prince, or is she just a princess? I mean, she called herself the Princess Bulma on the big cruise ship that she owns, whatever you want to call it. So I figured, the next logical step is make her the queen of all Saiyans, and that was what that cosplay ended up being.
Yeah, and I think it's fun because it does test, the imagination, and it's a mashup, and it's Dragon Ball Z, and it's not that far-fetched where when you do mashups or you go out on a limb, sometimes it connects and sometimes it doesn't, but I feel like this is clearly obvious.
Oh yeah, and it gets accepted very easily because a lot of people just expect, sure, she's with Vegeta, so sure, she can be the queen and have her own armor too.
Yeah, and then the other one that is also sort of a mashup that I thought was really well done and fun as well, and in that Dragon Ball Z theme, and also it's perfect because Dragon Ball Z Superhero just came out, is this one.
My Dino Woman. Yeah, I figured, someone's got to help keep the regular crime rate down, and those guys are off dealing with intergalactic bad guys, so she's got to deal with the jaywalkers and that kind of stuff.
Because it's Bulma-esque, I feel, and it's really just fun, and it's straight up Dragon Ball Z right out of the pages of it, and it's right out of Akira Toriyama's books in so many veins, and I think it's just brilliant, and I think it's a fun one.
Yeah, she's close to my heart because it took a good long time to make that entire cosplay. And I mean, I use the little ray gun that she has as a little girl when she's actually meeting Jocko for the first time. So I kept that because why would she get rid of it, you know? And I give her the attitude, you know, so it's like, oh, she'll be ready in a minute because, you know, she has to make herself look good before she goes and chases the bad guys down. And they better listen to her because, you know, she is Dino Woman.
And then obviously there's two more that you've done from Dragon Ball and that entire franchise. And there's Mrs. Brief.
Yes.
And then there's the husband.
Of course, yes.
This is Dr. Briefs. They're Bulma's parents, in case you didn't know that, everybody. Just making that crystal clear, in case anybody didn't know. So what's the story behind that? Because it's kind of nice to do Bulma and do so much Bulma, but then to do her parents too. It's kind of just a nice little touch.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, I go to a lot of cons and I have never seen either of those two cosplayed. And I figured, well, why not? So I did Dr. Briefs first. I've actually upgraded him. So he's got a full walrus mustache now that took me forever to dye. And, well, Mrs. Briefs, I call her Panchi because everyone calls her Panchi, even though it's never been said that that's her actual first name. And that kind of wonders, why would she have the underwear name if she's marrying someone? I mean, wouldn't that make them related somehow? But yeah, that's a whole nother discussion for Dragon Ball. I just thought that she needed to be done. So I made her top. I made her pinup version too, but she's got her, today I just dyed yet a new top because I'm wearing her to a con on Friday because I'm meeting Sean Schemmel and Christopher Sabat, and I want to meet them as Mrs. Briefs. So got a new top that I'm going to be wearing because the one that I made isn't for walking around too much. And so I've got my little tray. I'll have little cups and I'll be, you know, telling Vegeta dear, here, drink your tea, and sweet little Goku, would you like some cookies to go with that? And we'll see how well that goes.
So to even talk about that a little bit, and even just the making of a cosplay, because obviously you've done so many Bulmas, and obviously you redid Dr. Brief to some degree, and you redid Mrs. Brief as well, and you're working on that right now to get it ready for a con. How do you balance the costs? Because you do a lot of cosplays.
I do a lot of cosplays.
We're not going to get to all of them, everybody. I'm giving everybody a heads up that fair warning. We're not going to get to all of them, but.
Nope.
How do you balance the costs and also finding material and even finding time? Because little secret, everybody, cosplay can be expensive.
Yes, it can, especially if you want to really get into it. Because if you really get into the whole the good wigs, the good shoes, because if you're going to walk around at a con, you really want good shoes, not shoes that are going to kill your feet within an hour. The different fabrics, if you want a good quality fabric versus something that's going to fall apart, which happened to me when I made a dress, but that was in 4th grade. It took a while to get over that trauma. I would say that, you know, there's got to be a lot of budgeting involved because, I mean, obviously I have a household. I've got to pay for things like kids' haircuts and stuff like that. I also am an active athlete. So I have entry fees that I need to pay for stuff. But other than that, I try to budget, and it take a while to put together a cosplay. For example, I've been working on a steampunk version of She-Hulk for 2 years now. And I finally bought the gloves this past week. So now I have all the components, and now I just have to like sew gears and stuff on. And that one will finally be ready, but it took a while.
Yeah, even to touch on that too, because obviously I don't think people understand that sometimes money isn't the only problem. Sometimes creativity, sometimes even how to approach a problem. You know, obviously everybody has a job, and I have a job where I think at, and sometimes it takes me 2-3 hours to figure out a problem, and then the problem is a 5-minute thinking. But somebody says, but that only took you 5 minutes to realize, but it took me 3 hours to approach the problem.
Yeah.
And creativity is similar, I feel.
Exactly.
You know? And then, so what is that like for you? Because I would imagine that you come up with something like, you know, we're going to get to She-Hulk obviously in a second, or not a second, but maybe in like 25 minutes or so.
Oh, I can show you the creativity in one quick second. I made Jean Grey as Marvel Girl this summer, and she wears a mask. but I couldn't decide on which way I wanted her mask. So I made a cloth one. I made a foam covered in cloth one. I made one just out of foam, and I wasn't happy with any of them. So then I went to Warbler, and then I went to Warbler texture differently, and then I went to thicker foam, and then I finally went to Warbler textured the way I wanted. And all of these took a lot of time because I had to cut out the materials and sand them down and make sure the eye holes were smooth so nothing would poke me in the eye. And then the sanding and the priming and the painting and the drying and the painting and then the shaping, and finally trying to figure out which of these was the mask that I actually wanted to wear. This took a good, I don't know, about a week to figure out. Oh, forgot about this one too. So, yeah, sometimes you go through a lot, and there's a lot of time and the money involved in this to figure out what is the best approach to. Yeah, so sometimes it takes a while and a lot of mistakes and learning from the mistakes and moving on until you get to what you want.
Somebody said to me that the process of comic creation is a lot of left turns.
Yes.
And I think it's relevant for a lot of things. It took me a long time to figure out how to do an interview correctly. I've been doing this for almost 10 years. It's taken me a very long time in that regard and figuring out my niche and all that stuff and a bunch of other things that I'm involved in. It has taken me a long time. The saying is Rome wasn't built in a day. It was built in a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's a joke, everybody. That's a joke.
A year.
But it's really interesting because I think that people look at a final product sometimes and they don't realize what it took to get to that final product.
Oh, right. Absolutely. They'll look at a cosplay and go, that's cool. And they'll take a picture and walk off. And you're like, you have no idea how much time and effort went into this.
It's very interesting. And, I think that it's fascinating when people, comment on it, and some people understand it. And when people are really nice, man, that's so cool. And then people criticize on Instagram. It's just as horrible as it can be because creativity and people don't understand that. Look, what is a lot of work goes into a lot of this stuff.
Well, those who follow comics and cosplay, I think, are a little more gracious in their comments than those who are just like happen to catch a picture in their feed and go, oh, well, I'm going to comment on this and move on. And we're like, okay, thanks.
I don't think you've been around the indie circle in comics. The indie circle in comics is a very toxic place sometimes. So it's very divided, where indie comics are known, for being half great and half horrible. It just depends, because it's just so out there and it's whatever. And all you can say is that the people who are really good in indie comics are really good. And it's like there's no middle ground. You can't be average in indie comics. You just can't be as a person and being polite. But I think cosplay is very similar, where there's people who love cosplay and they're very supportive and they're very constructive. There's a difference between constructive and destructive. But
exactly.
I digress.
Exactly.
I wouldn't try to talk about time here because this is the opposite of Dragon Ball Z by definition. Is Sailor Moon, Sailor Pluto. And so, because DBZ was coming up, and right next to DBZ on the shoujo side was Sailor Moon. And so, what's the story behind this? Because you just did a bunch of Dragon Ball Z stuff, and I just showed them, and then you have your Sailor Moon side, which is arguably the two biggest animes of the 90s.
Well, I know a lot of people who cosplay Sailor Moon, and actually a friend of mine, Paradox Cosplay, wanted to get a group of us together to do all of the sailors. And I had already wanted to do one. I was like, well, I'll do Pluto because, one, you hardly ever see Pluto. And I tend to like to do characters that aren't really well known or versions that aren't well known. And Pluto resonated with me partly because astrologically speaking, Pluto is my planet, and she's the oldest of all the Senshi. And I think she's kind of like the more graceful, kind of educatey type one. She shepherds all the other ones and oversees them. So I said, all right, I'll do Pluto. And so she did Moon, I did Pluto, and the rest of the girls kind of pooped out on us. So it was just the two of us.
So what was this like? Because obviously Sailor Moon, much like Dragon Ball Z, is well known. And I feel like you go to a con as, anybody from Dragon Ball Z for the most part, you're going to be recognized. You go from con, anybody Sailor Moon, anybody from Naruto, anybody from One Piece, those shows get recognized. And,
Yes.
I hate to say this and it's going to sound messed up, but if you want an easier time as a cosplayer, going from something that you're more recognizable tends to, people say, "Oh, cool, can I take your picture?" And you tend to get, more noticed. And I think it's also easier to not blend in, but sort of be in the flow to some
Right.
degree. So what was this like? Obviously doing Sailor Moon, and people know Sailor Moon, but there's also not as many Plutos at a con
No,
as there
no,
is,
absolutely not at all. And I have worn her to 2 cons, and a lot of people just look at the outfit and go, "Are you like a Sailor Moon as an adult, or who are you?" And so I'll explain. No, I'm Sailor Pluto.
you just haven't gotten to that part in the anime yet.
Yeah, her name is Setsuna, and she does all sorts of really cool things. She's the guardian of space and time, and everyone's like, "Thanks very much, goodbye." But this summer, I wore her to a con called JFAX, which is a Japanese animation, and everyone knew who she was, and I kept getting stopped for pictures. And even though I had a disaster I leaned my garnet rod up, and it went crashing down, and parts of it broke off, and there was a collective "oh no" from the entire hall, and then everyone helped me gather the pieces, and they took me to repair so I can glue it all back together. And everyone was so friendly about that, but everyone knew who she was, and it was very gracious. Had all these Marses and moons, and even one tuxedo mask rushing up to take pictures with me. So that's kind of fun.
So let me ask you a question, because one of the things is that I'm a very educated anime fan.
Okay.
And, I've been to cons where people are not educated on
Mm-hmm.
certain topics. And look, I go old school. I mean, I happen to know a lot about Osamu Tezuka and the golden age of anime, and I'm just that type of guy. And I love things like Astro Boy and Blackjack. And I go back to the
Okay.
50s and sometimes even the 30s. And I go all the way up to My Hero Academia season 6.
Boy.
So
Okay.
I run the gauntlet. I legitly run the gauntlet. But one of the things is that some cons have more educated fans, I feel, and some cons don't. And so what is that like when you're at a con that has a more educated fan base and they actually know who Pluto is?
Oh.
Because I find that it's very interesting and look, I'm not a cosplayer, but I'm a panelist, and I've had some very interesting discussions at cons where the fan base has been educated, and we were speaking for 2, 3, 4 hours
Oh
and
yeah.
really getting into some crazy stuff with Gundam and some other stuff. And it's a very different experience, I find. And I'm curious as a cosplayer what that is like for you.
Um, It happens with a number of my cosplays that people actually know the whole history of that character, and they'll come up and they'll almost quiz me to see if I am just like wearing it for the heck of it or if I actually know the character. But for me, I cannot cosplay a character unless I have some kind of connection with that character. I can't just throw on a cosplay and say, okay, I'm going to do this person because she's popular now or he's popular now. It has to be someone that resonates with me. So when people come up and start asking me questions like, oh, what's her real name? Or what does she do for a living? And I can tell her, oh, her name is Setsuna Mayo. And yeah, and they're like, oh, you know who she is. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I know the character. Thanks. A year or so ago, was it a year? Wow, time flies. Ken Kaneki. I have a couple of versions of him, and people come up to me and they'll ask me all sorts of questions about, oh, well, what's the name of the cafe where he works at, and what does he become, and who does he marry, and I'm just like, yeah, no, I got you. I know where you're coming. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about too.
Because it's so interesting. And then obviously there's just some amazing photos like this right here is just a fantastic photo. And it's
Thank
really,
you.
really just nicely done. It's edited, but it's still nicely done.
Thank you. No, that was taken by one of my main photographers, Forrest Edge. And a friend of mine, Rams Design, did the edits for me. And I thought he did a really good job with that.
Yeah, no, I like that photo a lot. And I was like, oh, that's super cool. And then the last anime thing I want to talk about before we get into comics
Okay.
is Midnight, because
Ah,
I love
girl.
Midnight. Midnight's played by Elizabeth Maxwell, and she's been on this show. And you've had 2 versions of Midnight.
Yes.
And so I like Midnight. I think it's funny. Brina Valencia, who plays Midnight's foil in My Hero Academia, has also been on this show as a pop-off. And I just think that's just ultra cute between the 2 of them. And so what's the story behind that character and doing that character? Because Midnight is a fun character.
Oh, she's fun. Oh, she's loads of fun. And I've had actually multiple versions. It took me about 4 or 5 wigs to finally find the wig that was right for Midnight. I've got like progression through the years of how she looked and how she looks now. And to be honest, I mean, I started watching the show and I loved it. And I was like, well, who do I want to do? And actually, I started out with Momo, but I just didn't really resonate with Momo. I mean, yay, I think Creati is great, but she wasn't for me. And Uchako just wasn't for me either. And I was like, well, who else is in here? And it's like, oh, Midnight. And she's just such a riot with her half sadistic kind of comments and the way she's like so cute and so like, oh, yay, I love this. Oh, youth, and that was like, okay, Midnight is me. So I went for her, and she's just been so much fun. I've worn her to a couple of cons, and I always have like these stare-offs with Mount Lady cosplayers, and there'll be times that I specifically ask, okay, everyone just pretend you're asleep, and I'll get a picture of me just like posing with everyone asleep at my feet, and she's just such a fun character.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like about Midnight in particular, and even just on a cosplay level, is that Midnight is very much a supporting character and a reoccurring character.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I think is interesting about cosplay too. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that when you're cosplaying a character that isn't front and center, but appears in and out of the show, it's probably less pressure to some degree,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yes.
And it also allows for more fun because I was speaking with Danny Chambers last night, and she plays Shovel on Dr. Stone. And Shovel is a character that appears in and out of a bunch of episodes, and it's kind of like eating cotton candy playing that role. And that's what I would imagine what cosplaying Midnight is like, because nobody takes Midnight the same way they take Deku.
Right. Oh my gosh, no. There was a time when I went and just counted all the Deku and Todoroki cosplayers at one con, and then it was just one Midnight. That was me. But I mean, for those who are My Hero fans, I mean, she's recognizable. I mean, with her outfit, it's kind of hard to miss her. But no, she.
No kidding, right? No kidding.
Fun.
So
and the funny thing is, people are just like, how could you wear that in public? And I'm like, do you not realize I'm almost completely covered? My hands are exposed and my face is exposed, but every other inch of me is covered. So yeah, I have no problem wearing her in public.
See, that's interesting too, is that's super interesting actually, because there's a lot of revealing cosplays in a lot of ways. Midnight is actually not one of them.
No, not at all.
Yet Midnight has the stigma of being that, which is so weird. Now that and I'm just thinking off the top of my head on what you just said, and actually thinking about it. Midnight is a very clothed character that is almost has the, I guess, premise of not being clothed, if that makes any sense. It's a weird statement, but like, yeah. My mind is like actually thinking about and running this through my head now. Like, it's super interesting. Super interesting actually on that point.
No, it does. I mean, there are characters that wear more revealing outfits. For instance, Dos from One Punch Man comes to mind immediately. Yeah, no, I mean, people just think of her as, oh, you're wearing that little outfit. And it's like, this little outfit goes up to my wrists. Think what you want. This is how she dresses.
It's pretty interesting on that front. And obviously, I mean, I could talk about My Hero all day long. I could talk about a lot of stuff all day long. But I do want to talk about the comic side of stuff. Okay. There's a few from DC that I want to talk about. I am a huge Supergirl fan. I thoroughly enjoy Supergirl. I think Michael Turner is the greatest Supergirl artist of all time. And if people want to fight me on that, I will see you somewhere in New Jersey. But believe me, I won't miss like Hamilton did. Believe Yes, yes, I just said that. I mean, Bird did become vice president, so that's all I'm gonna say.
He got a shot.
He was also somewhat of an, creating, an insurrection in the West. But anyway, that's not the point here. Aaron Burr, fascinating, fascinating politician. But anyway, this is your Supergirl. So, what's the story behind this? Because Supergirl is well known. The TV Supergirl was pretty good, and people love Supergirl.
Well, growing up, I had two favorite superheroines. One was Wonder Woman, and one was Supergirl. And I think it just came naturally to me that I wanted to cosplay Supergirl. So I went with the classic comic book look. And I also now have Dark Supergirl, which was only in the handful of comic books. But I mean, she just made such a impact with those 4 issues that she was in. And I actually just started cosplaying the CW's version of Supergirl as well, and I've got both her as her civilian side and her Supergirl side. So
yeah, let's even talk about Dark Supergirl, because classic Supergirl right here, everybody, is not as interesting as your Dark Supergirl. I mean, let's just call it what it is. The Dark Supergirl looks starker. It looks, more, I guess, bam is a good way to put it. And it looks, I think, like, okay, commands more attention, I feel. And it also looks meaner. It looks fiercer. It looks like Supergirl is going to kill you type of look. And it's just a more fun cosplay. It's also different, I feel. And that's the thing, too, is that I guess traditional Supergirl gets old. And so what was this like to really do this? Because I think this is sort of better than your classic.
Oh, no, Dark Supergirl is fun because, I mean, she takes on Lex Luthor, she takes on Green Arrow, she takes on everybody, Canary, I mean, and she pretty much pounds the dirt with them all. She takes on Batman, and I mean, she's just so malevolent, and there's no stopping the level of anger that's inside her, and that just manifests and make her more and more powerful, and no one can really stop her except for one person that I don't know if I should mention because maybe you haven't read the comic books.
It's interesting, and I think this is one of the things that is fascinating is that it's different, and I think people are getting sick and tired just in comics and in media, and even with Marvel and DC and what they're doing with their shows. I think people want something new. I mean, who doesn't want like 2 seasons of Dark Supergirl as a show? I think it'd be great. I think it'd be fun. It'd make money. I guarantee you it would make money because people are like, what's this? This actually looks cool. And we now have a character who's doing some pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's nice when that happens in cosplay. It's the reason why mashups, I feel, are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. It's because who doesn't want to see, a mashup of 2 characters done in a certain way, or who doesn't want to see, a holiday version of a character,
Yeah, exactly.
And then obviously, I mean, we're just gonna drop it and we're gonna talk about this because we have to.
Okay.
You got 3 of them. Everybody's done
about
one.
8 of them now.
You got 8 of them. Everybody's done at least one. At least one. You don't have to dive into it too much, but basic premise.
Gosh, I resisted.
You have a minute. You have a minute for it.
Okay.
That's all you get.
Harley for years because I just didn't like the dynamics of her being subservient to Joker, but she broke away from all that, and now I just love her. She's so much fun. I just today kind of posted one of my it's the animated version in the little slinky dress that she wears for one episode when she's going out with Poison Ivy. And I just love the fact that she's so liberated and just wild and ready to do whatever she was. And only Ivy can pull her back in now. And it's just lots of fun.
My favorite issue in comics is Batman Adventures number 16. It's an expensive book, and it's just a beautiful book. It's a sad book. It's like the wedding issue.
Oh.
Joker and Harley. Oh, it's a brutal issue. It's either 12 or 16. I forget which it is. but I paid like 50, $60 for it.
Wow. Okay.
It's a great issue. It's such a great cover. It's a great issue to have. It's just a beautiful book, and it's a sad, messed up ending, but it definitely touches upon Harley and stuff that's going on. And speaking about Poison, this is her.
Yes, my Autumn Ivy. That was a labor of love. I don't know what it is about DC characters. I do so many of them, but Ivy, outside of Wonder Woman, Ivy is my main DC character. I think I've got about 13 versions of her now. And I want to do a fall version because I didn't see why she had to be tied to green leaves in summer. So it took me about a month to make that one because I had to hand sew every single leaf and then test it to make sure it didn't fall off, but there was still movement. So I wasn't just like stuck and not being able to move. And then I expanded and made the crown to go with it. And then I made the jewelry to go with it. And then I made the leg wraps to go with it. And I made a glove for the hand that doesn't have anything on it right now.
Yeah, because this is one of the things that I think people also don't realize about cosplay and even building out costumes and cosplays. It's not, again, just money. It's time.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the idea of workshopping a problem, because I'm sure that there were obstacles.
Oh, yes.
Making sure it fits, making sure it's movable, making sure it's comfortable. That's a big thing right now in cosplay is, it's great to have an authentic piece of armor and look really cool. But what if you're on for 16 hours and you can't sit or you can't pee? You can't pee. That's
you can't
a problem.
Even escalator because it involves bending your knees, and yeah, that's not happening in armor.
And you know what it is? Forget about the escalator. What about the bathroom? I mean, seriously, if you're at a con for 16 hours and it's going to be impossible for you to take off your armor, or it's extremely hard, well, you know what it is? There you go. I mean, that's something that I think, people have to really think about when you build stuff out. And then also, how much time do you have to build something in reality? And are you thoroughly enjoying what you're building?
Right.
That's the other thing, too. I mean, if it's going to take you 60 hours to build something, that's the other thing too, is it really worth that effort in building it out?
I've known people who have started working on a project and halfway through they're like, I'm just disgusted. I don't even want to do this anymore. And they let it go. And, if you don't have the heart to finish a project, then don't bother because that time can be put somewhere else.
You're better off buying it. You're better off buying it. Seriously. Because it might cost you just as much money or even less to buy it.
Right.
And unless you're competing, if you just want to go and have a good time with cosplay, because I bought cosplays before back in the day when I was semi getting into it. It's not for me. I'm not a cosplayer. I like being in, my comfortable t-shirt and my shorts at a con. But anyway, but again, I thoroughly enjoyed just buying a tailored cosplay for myself. And I had a great time in it, and it was nice, and it was not that expensive. For me to make the same cosplay would have cost 14 times more.
Right. And people are very, very snooty, I guess is one way of putting it, because they'll look down on people who buy their costumes. And sometimes the practicality of buying a white shirt to go with a cosplay versus making the white shirt. I mean, there comes a time where you have to just think practically and budget your time better. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with buying a costume because, I buy half of my costumes and if people get upset because, hey, I bought that costume, well, sorry.
I mean, this is the issue, right? And it gets very interesting where there are, top cosplayers who have costumes made for them. And then they get invited to BlizzardCon. They get invited places, and then there's still that attitude of being looked down upon. I mean, it's kind of BS. You know what is? If you're a top cosplayer, I'm not saying you didn't build some of your cosplays too, but it's the idea that if you then have a costume built for you, or you're working for a gaming company and they built the costume for you and you didn't build the cosplay, and you look down upon, isn't that hypocritical?
It's silly because you know what? It doesn't matter if you make the cosplay or if you thrift it from Amazon and different stores or if you buy it from a cosplay company. What matters is that you care enough about the character to put the character on for a day.
I can guarantee you that
Mhm.
there's also the idea that, I mean, I had a cosplayer on last week. Guy is jacked and he's fit, right? So if he buys a Green Lantern, onesie, just and he doesn't invest any money into it, or he does the Green Lantern, the baseball bat light up. He's in the chat earlier. He's great. He's fantastic. Yeah. But the idea is that if you do that, but you're fit and you're jacked,
Mhm.
that's still part of it too. And what is also how you look at as that character. I mean, Jessica in Nigeria is a good example where she looks a certain part. And so even if she doesn't make the cosplay, she embodies that character,
Right.
which is half the presentation. And then all of a sudden you have a Patreon. That's the other thing too that I think people sometimes forget is that it's also how you embody it. It's how you shoot with that cosplay. It's how it looks, because certain people have a certain body type that just makes that thing look good.
Right.
And I hate to say it, but like if you have a super jacked up, cosplay guy who's a bodybuilder, and that character he's cosplaying is a bodybuilder and is like muscle on top of muscle on top of muscle, I don't really care if he made it because he looks the part.
Right. Exactly. I get a little bit of that too because I actually recently got a comment saying she's not strong enough to be She-Hulk, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I run marathons. Tell me I'm not strong enough to be a character. Like,
It's interesting in that regard. And then obviously you mentioned Wonder Woman, and so this is your Wonder Woman, and then this is also your Wonder Woman.
yes.
And I know you have a few more versions of that. You have something that's more in the vein of Linda Carter as well. And obviously there's a few more, but what's even with like your Wonder Womans, because those are fun too.
Well, with Supergirl, I grew up loving the character. I mean, I used to watch Super Friends on TV and watch like that animated Wonder Woman, and then watching the Linda Carter Wonder Woman, and gosh, Kerry Russell's animated Wonder Woman. Love, 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 and just all the iterations that have come through the years. I've actually got a piece of artwork that shows like gosh, it's about 30 different versions of Wonder Woman, and I don't hope to do all of them because some of those are like, wow, I could never build that. But I try. I mean, my most recent Wonder Woman was the Golden Age one, and I had her corset with the original eagle made for me recently, and I debuted that last month actually. But I just love the character because she is just so into truth and getting justice, and she is incorruptible, and she just strives and doesn't care if it's a man's world. She's going to show everyone what she can do, and she's just awesome. So I just love all the Wonder Womans that there are, and so many people love her too, and they're like people that cosplay her. I know guys that cosplay her, and because she's just such an amazing character. So yeah, she's a staple of mine.
Yeah, no, I enjoy your Wonder Woman cosplays, and I just think that obviously it's just one of those characters. It's one of the triumvirate. If you don't know what the triumvirate is, it's Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, which
Mm-hmm.
are massive DC stables. I mean, it's the core, three in DC, and obviously there's just so much history with Wonder Woman
Yeah.
out there that it really is an amazing, I think, cosplay to do, and
Yeah.
it's nice in that regard as well. And then obviously I just want to touch upon your Batgirls as well before we get to the Marvel stuff. So that's Batgirl, and then this is Purple Batgirl.
The Yvonne Craig one. Yes.
I haven't seen Purple Batgirl in a while. So what's that one? Obviously everybody knows this one, right?
Yep, that's New 52 Batgirl versus the original 60s TV show with Adam West Batgirl.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Purple Batgirl in a while. So that's a nice pleasant surprise, I think, for everybody.
Yeah, I actually wore her to an event this past weekend where I was judging a costume contest, and everyone was like, "Oh, we love your Batgirl, but what is she from? We don't know Purple Batgirl." I'm like, "She's the original Batgirl, the one you see on TV." And they're like, "Oh, you mean in the cartoon?" And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. Adam West, back in the day."
You got to mention Family Guy. They're like, "Oh, Adam West. Why don't you just say it that way?" You mean Quahog? Yeah. He's there. It's good. But yeah, no. What is that like? Because I think that's another thing where one of the things that me and people in comics have a discussion about is that people don't know history.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Adam West from the 60s. Now I'm 29. The only reason why I know that is because it was on TV Land at like 4:30.
Right. TV
They
Land, Nick at Night, all the old reruns of everything. And people don't watch the reruns, and that's where all the classic stuff is, and that's where all the fun stuff is. And you can learn so much from those shows. I mean, gosh, so much. I did not really watch all of the Love Boats recently.
and so what is that like? Because then people know, hey, this looks familiar, but then they're like, and then you explain to them, and I don't want to say there's a disconnect because some people get it, and people who understand comics get it, people who are into toys get it, but there's
Right.
also the issue of, okay, what's the reaction? I guess.
Where is she? Why is she wearing purple? What's with that? Right? No. I there was a really nice lady who came up to me and she's like, I haven't seen Eva Greg in ages. You do her so well. And I was like, you know who I am. Thank you.
So what is that like? Because obviously, pop culture spans a bunch of ages. There's a whole generation coming up on manga right now. And I grew up every Saturday going to Barnes & Noble, picking out a manga book, enjoying it, and building out an extensive manga collection. And I used to do that all throughout all my middle school, for a good chunk into my high school, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And, wasn't super busy in the manga section when I was doing it when I was like 13, started when I was 11, really was a lot smaller. Now it's massively bigger.
Right. Yeah.
And now all these kids are looking at manga. I'm looking at manga and I'm looking at what they're reading, and then I pick up what they're reading, oddly enough. So I'm taking my cues from like 17-year-olds on what I should buy in manga, and they're more right than wrong. But what is that like? Because there is a generation, though, that is 40, 50, 60 years old, and they remember this stuff too.
Right.
And now it's also the idea that there's also a generation that probably those 17-year-olds at some point are going to discover Batman from the 60s, because let's be realistic, all this stuff is so readily available. It's literally 4 clicks away on YouTube.
Right. Everything's available on YouTube. And I mean, actually, I had a lot of little kids who came up to me and she's like, oh, Batgirl. So, I mean, they knew who I was. And like parents who were kind of like 20s to 30s kind of were like scratching their head going, is that really Batgirl? It's not like, no, I didn't just stick on a purple Zentai suit and decide I was going to call myself Batgirl. She actually has a history. She actually was on the TV show, and maybe her purple outfit didn't get into the comics, but she definitely is part of the character's history.
No, I just think it's interesting. And I think that obviously, what is old and is not popular is coming back. And I think
Absolutely
is going to remain popular. I mean, things like Pokemon are here to stay.
Pokemon never goes out of style.
But it's the idea. It's all the stuff that I got made fun of all throughout, secondary, like I guess like elementary school, middle school, part of high school is all cool now, and all those people want all that stuff.
Right. Oh my gosh, I got teased so much because instead of going and playing soccer or whatever, I'd be glued to the TV watching Star Blazers or Macross or Robotech or something, and now it's just like, oh, so you're watching it now too, huh? Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
It's interesting because now there are. I mean, LeBron James, a few years ago was in the NBA playoffs, and it's like, I'm eating, cereal. I'm eating like Captain Crunch, or I'm eating Trix, and I'm watching Teen Titans. And that's how he's preparing for the next game. He's like, I'm in a hotel room. I'm eating my Trix with my milk, and I'm watching Teen Titans. And now I'm a Teen Titans guy, and I'm listening to LeBron talk about it. And LeBron is not, on my team per se. Unfortunately, I'm a Knicks fan, so I was born to suffer. But anyway, that's such a bad joke. And so, anyways, they used to be good, like years ago, 50 years ago. They used to be good.
I'm a Devils fan, so yeah, I hear you.
But one of the things is that it's now cool where there's all these kids who are watching Teen Titans on Cartoon Network, and they hear LeBron talking about it. They're like, wait a second, LeBron James, the arguably one of the best basketball players and one of the most dominating players on the court, watches Teen Titans before he preps up for games.
Yeah,
Like,
that's cool.
it's now been a cultural shift, and I think that's what's going on, and it's super interesting in that regard.
Yeah, I think that the one generation that just doesn't get it is well, I don't want to sing. I shouldn't blanket statement everything, but well, my mom just doesn't get it. She thinks animated shows are for children. You shouldn't really watch those. And meanwhile, I'm like, you don't have any clue how far they have come from when you were a girl.
So it's interesting. Obviously, my mom understands Star Trek. So my parents don't not understand anime, but they also understand that something is animated. Not everything is the same.
Right.
So an animated movie is not the same as Naruto, the TV show.
Oh no.
So there's a difference of tolerance in my family. Also though, there's different anime styles.
Yes.
Like wow, I can't. Skycrawlers. That's a different anime movie than Pompo the Cinephile. By
Right.
definition, the CGI and even the concept of Skycrawlers is so different. So my father might watch Skycrawlers based on the fact that it's dealing with air fights and dog fights in the air and reincarnation with amazing animation. He might not watch, Spirited Away. But all of a sudden, my parents will watch Star Trek because Star Trek is that, but that's nerd culture, and that's the whole thing that I think has shifted. Is that even just going into nerd culture is now cool. It's mainstream.
Yes.
So something like Star Trek is not as taboo as it once was.
Well, Star Trek is always dear to me. Oh, don't even get me started on Star Trek.
I went to the theaters and saw Wrath of Khan, the 40th anniversary. It was great. It was great. Me and my friends were all 29, and we were the youngest people in that. And I'm like, this was cool. And I said to my friends, in another 40 years, we're gonna be back here doing it. So there's no question about that. On its 80th anniversary, on its 50th anniversary, we're gonna be back doing it. On its 60th, we're gonna be back doing it. And then we're gonna be the old ones up there. And we're gonna be like, we were here 40 years ago, and it's gonna be fantastic.
No. Star Trek was actually my first cosplay. A friend of mine who, for some reason, has blanked this completely out of his mind, and we went to the local Two Guys department store, which doesn't exist anymore. I bought a gold shirt. He bought a blue shirt. We took markers and colored in the collars to make them, quirky kind of tops. We put on black pants, and we hopped on a bus and went to New York City to where they were having a Star Trek event. And since we didn't have tickets, we just hung around on the outside, and that was cool. And that was, he still cosplays Star Trek. He goes to the thing in Vegas, and me, well, I still cosplay Star Trek too, but with like more professionally made costumes. And Star Trek is actually a big part of my everyday life. Quick plug, Starfleet International. I am the Assistant Surgeon General for Region 1 and also the director of 4 different colleges for the Starfleet Academy Online. Okay, that's enough. Yes, I am a big Star Trek nerd.
I thoroughly enjoy Star Trek, and I have some cool stuff in Star Trek, but I don't want to tell what I got because once I do, people are going to make me offers for it.
I'm working on a Divana Tendi cosplay right now. All I have to do is cut the wig and color it, and she is set to go. So,
I do like collecting Star Trek cards. I find them to be really cool. The Women of Star Trek set is a super cool set. And it's a really good one. It's a little pricey though. It's like $6 for I think 5 cards, which is
wow. Does it include Strange New Worlds? Because there's some real awesome women in that show.
So they did the set. The first set was in 2001.
Okay.
2021, and then now they're on 22. And so I don't know. They go across everything. They go from the original New Generations, Wrath of Khan, all that stuff. But I don't know where they go with what and what they've eliminated from set 1 to set 2. Okay. And there'll be a set 3, but again, it's just a cool set. I love the set. It's cool because the cards are nice, where you get like that really cool artistry, and
Mhm.
then like the names are like inlaid with gold,
Oh,
and
wow.
the cards are like a little bit thicker, and so it's just a nicer product collectively. It's a really good set, and it's a nice set, and then every once in a while you can find some really cool cards in there. Um, but there's like I'm looking for a Nichelle Nichols on that one.
Uh,
I'm also looking for a few others. Um, but anyway, I digress. I digress. Um, anyway, but yeah, no, going into Marvel now because there's only two I want to talk about with Marvel, and I know I'm missing a bunch. It's this right here, your Spider Woman,
Woman.
because I only show all of them. And they're pretty interesting because Spider Woman, from my understanding, was very controversial. I know a lot less about Spider Woman than I know about She Hulk. Spider Woman was very controversial because, for a few reasons, there was the pregnant cover of her
Yes.
pregnant, which I have that cover. Very interesting. I think Peter David wrote it too. I think he wrote Spider Woman around that time. So that cover was controversial, but then they rebuilt her entire costume. And I don't think they reestablished her the same way, but they rebuilt her. And so what was that like to
Well,
do her? Because this was sort of the rebuild and I guess the rebirth or the rebooting or the soft reboot is a good way to put it. I'm not exactly sure how to say it.
well, Spider-Woman has gotten such the short shift from Marvel as in MCU because she's an Avenger in the comic books. She is a main character in all that. She gets involved with so much. I mean, she lives at Stark Tower or Avengers Tower and nothing. She's like non-existent in the MCU, which is why I decided to cosplay her because I figured she needed the coverage. She needed some love. I have the red outfit as well, her original red outfit. I have not done her as a pregnant Spider Woman yet, but that is on my list to do someday because I think it's just awesome that she is still going around saving people like 36 weeks pregnant. I mean, she has awesome dialogue with people where she's like yelling at them, you know, I'm risking my life and my kid's life to save you. So when I say run, you better run. And she's got awesome dialogue. The black suit. I don't want to give too much away about how she came to get the black suit for people who haven't read the comics. Read the comics. But I mean, it is just so tailored to her by the person who made it for her. And it, as she puts it, it makes her butt look good. And so that's how she keeps the black suit. I just love it because it's got a little more of the classic Spidey kind of look to it. But I mean, and she does know Peter Parker, although there's not that much interaction with him. There's just, you know, well, she does, but she has her own thing because she walks away from Avengers and they keep pulling her back. And I mean, she is a night owl because she's got her private investigative service, and then she's also trying to save people. And I don't know when she sleeps, and she's got a kid, so she's got a pretty full life. And
Yeah, and let's even talk about that because you got a lot of coverage for it. I mean, not a lot, but you got some coverage. You know, some websites checked it out. I know that this photo was on, I forget which website, but this was one of the ones that was on there. And so, what was that like too? Because obviously, and I say this the nicest way I could say, you know, you don't have 1 million Instagram followers.
no,
And
I
so
don't.
anytime anybody who has less than, 100,000, followers on Instagram gets some coverage by a major comic book news site, it's always nice. It's the same thing when a cosplayer gets noticed by Sci-Fi and they have 15,000 Instagram followers. It's a nice little boost, I feel, for
Yeah.
that person. It gets them a lot of attention. And it's saying, hey, we also recognize somebody on the merit versus just on their numbers.
It was actually, I was floored because I had no clue. And then someone actually said, "Did you see yourself?" And I was like, "No, what?" And they sent me the link, and I was like, "Holy moly!" I mean, I was so honored. It was just, and then people started like following me and asking me all about like, "Where'd you get the suit? How did you do that picture? Who did put your photos? And why do you do that version of Spider Woman? We don't know the black suit." And it was like a whirlwind. It was fabulous. I was floored. I was honored. It was just so flattering to actually be recognized because, I am not like a $25,000 or 250,000 subscriber person. I build my following slowly, and to have something like that happen, I was just absolutely tickled pink or black and red, whatever.
Yeah, no, because I think that's one of the things that people don't also realize is that a follow to me means a lot. There's certain people who follow me on Twitter. There's certain people who follow me on Instagram, and it means a lot. And it's not expensive. If you like what I do, it makes me feel really special when somebody follows me
Mm-hmm.
on Twitter or likes my page or joins my private Facebook group. Or just wants to, say hi to me on Instagram. It means a lot. And I think that people don't understand that, hey, look, it doesn't cost you anything. And it actually does help.
Right.
And I appreciate it when I get a new follower. I'm like, hey, somebody appreciates what I'm doing. Thanks
Absolutely.
so much. I post a
Mhm.
cool picture of a comic up. And so he's like, dude, that's cool, man. I really like what you posted up. That's cool. And so, I think it does make a difference. I think that it's nice when people actually do that. And I think that when people get free media and really good media, that's also helpful too.
Oh yeah, no, I totally appreciated that. And yeah, no, you're absolutely right about followers. I am very appreciative of anyone who follows me because they don't have to, but the fact that they find my cosplays interesting enough to follow and see what I'm doing or what I'm going to be publishing next, it's really nice. And I really appreciate that they take the time.
We're different in that fashion. I'm not requiring if you want to get on my show, you have to follow me on social media. and no, it's real. It's real. It's coming. Season 4, legitly. If you don't follow me on social media, you're not coming on my show. It's that simple, everybody. Or you could just give me like $20. It's your choice. I'll take the money or a social media follow. And if I do write a comic book, that's the rule. You're either gonna follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, or it's $5. You could pick which one you want. I don't care, but you need skin in the game. I'm sorry. You could completely go free, or you could pay. It's one or the other.
Well,
I guarantee you, I'm probably gonna have more people paying me than following me. It's gonna be the craziest thing. It's an interesting social experiment, though. It really is.
well, social media is in itself a big social experiment.
I guarantee you that more people will pay me not to follow me on Twitter. They'll be like, Andrew, I would rather. Is there a way that I could pay you so that you could block me on Twitter? Like, it's just gonna be terrible. It's gonna be terrible. I saw somebody put on a Kickstarter tier. You give me $5 to get me to take you off my email list. I thought it was a very funny tier. I still think it's a funny tier. But anyway, I digress. Social media is very important, guys. If you like something, again, you should absolutely follow somebody because it does make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one I want to talk about that got you a lot of attention is She-Hulk.
Yes.
And so I think this is the first She-Hulk, or at least the earlier one, hopefully.
She's actually only in Marvel's 2-for-1 comic, which is a whole Fantastic Four series, and that's the only place she ever appears in. She's from another universe because Johnny and Ben are trying to find Sue and Reed, and they're going through all these different universes looking for them, and they encounter her in one of them.
But I think this was done before She-Hulk was getting really, really popular.
90s, so probably.
Yeah, so this was one of the earlier ones that you did, though, right? Of She-Hulk.
Yes.
So this was before it was really, really cool to do She-Hulk.
Oh yeah, it's really cool now. There's all sorts of She-Hulk cosplayers now, and there are those of us who've been doing her for years going, oh yeah, now you've discovered her. We knew she was cool. So
Sia Ohm has a really good She-Hulk cover. It's beautiful where it's the cover where you have obviously She-Hulk and not She-Hulk form staring at a mirror transforming. So the mirror's transforming, but she's not, if that makes any sense, in the bathroom.
That makes complete sense.
And so now you have a very cool, cover of that. And Sia Om is just a freaking beyond talented artist. Sia Om does a comic called Lola XO.
Okay.
Um, and Lola XO is done in Copic marker for the most part. So
Oh,
it's colored in Copic marker.
wow.
It's a crazy comic. It's a crazy way to do it. And it's an awesome way to do it because that's like old school, no digital colors.
Right.
And something doesn't go the right way, and blending
Oh, and
colors and
oh
actually,
god.
it's epic. It's a whole different beast. That
Yeah,
that that
Copic markers are what I use to color my wigs. So they're
I
using them.
like Copic markers. I do for a lot of stuff, but I like commissions with Copic markers, and I have a few of them, and they're just beautiful. But talking about the cool She-Hulk stuff, there's this right here.
There you go.
This
Classic She-Hulk. And I call her
this
shredded.
this,
You.
and then we get this too,
Ah,
which is fun, and then we get
Lord.
this.
Regular Jen.
So we get regular Jen, and then we get that one, which is just fun. This is 90s, like She-Hulk. It's straight out of the 90s, straight out of the 70s to be precise.
Oh. Yeah, She-Hulk is easily one of my favorite cosplay characters. I mean, she's just so wacky because that's one thing that they did really well on the TV show is preserve her sense of humor because she breaks the fourth wall. She knows she's a comic character and she has such a different spin on things and she has no problem making fun of anyone or like, well, she also has a healthy appetite for the opposite sex, and she's just a lot of fun to cosplay.
See, one of the things that Marvel did, and I don't think that it was intentional with the show that was going to come out. Marvel 1000 came out, and on the 70s or 80s cover was She-Hulk, and she's sort of working out, and she's got a Walkman, and it's just so She-Hulk, if that makes any sense. The cover is perfect. I forgot who did the cover, but whoever did it understood the character, and it is so She-Hulk.
I know exactly what you're talking about because I tried finding a Walkman and failed miserably.
And so to even talk about this is that obviously there's a few things that I'm curious about. The green, obviously, skin. What's the deal with that? Because paint can be dangerous. Paint can be scary.
I know. You think of like Margaret Hamilton as the Wicked Witch of the West and the skin poisoning she went through with all that green back in the 30s. But the body paint that I use is by a company named Meron, and they are very professional. And I have two versions of their paint. I have one that's in cake form and one that's in liquid form. And I prefer the cake form because it's a lot easier for me to apply myself. But when I want really good coverage, like for the ones that were shredded and where most of my body is painted, I have it airbrushed on. And it's a patience kind of thing. It took 5 hours to get the body paint painted onto me for that shot.
So let's even go further into that because obviously, and I don't know if you've worn She-Hulk to a con, a con, or if you're just saying, look, that's too complicated because let's call it what it is. You have to plan appropriately. You can't be She-Hulk on Friday and say, I'm going to be Sailor Pluto on Saturday. You could be Sailor Pluto on Friday, but you could be She-Hulk on Saturday and then skip Sunday. But also if you have to do something on Monday, it's maybe painting yourself green isn't the solution.
It's funny because I'll have gone to a con during the weekend, and then later, maybe that week, I have a doctor's appointment or I'm getting my hair cut, and they'll go, you have some green in your ear. What is that from? And I'm like, oh man, there's still some paint in my ear. But yeah, I've worn her to a con a couple of times, and it really takes a lot of planning because I usually do 2 characters a day when I go to a con. And if I'm She-Hulk, I can't be anybody else but She-Hulk, because there's no way I can like step off and scrub all that paint off and then have any time for anything else.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things that, you know, obviously is not really covered, is that if you're going to body paint yourself, you know, and you have intricate designs, it's not so simple
No,
to go change your cosplay.
absolutely not.
And also it's the idea that if it's going to take you 5 hours to airbrush it on, I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to the con on Friday as something else? And
That
then
was for a
spend.
photo shoot, and well, thank heavens we had the whole day. I got there and we started doing the airbrushing at 1, and it took until after 6 to get everything done. And we filmed it all to document how long it took to get all that paint on. And then we had to do the shoot. It was just like, we're so tired.
Yeah, and then even going beyond that, obviously, I mean, there's two reactions, you know, to She-Hulk, as far as you know how people are going to react to it. There's the internet reaction, and then there's at the con. And obviously, you've been doing She-Hulk a little bit before the show dropped, and then the show obviously dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And what has that been like? Because I would imagine there's more She-Hulks out there. There's
Oh,
also bigger cosplayers who are doing She-Hulk.
yeah, there's a lot of people who are now discovering She-Hulk. There's like bodybuilders who decided, hey, I'm gonna cosplay, it's gonna be She-Hulk. But I mean,
there was the one famous one, but we with China back in the day, right, where she was the original She-Hulk technically.
yeah,
That's a different discussion for a different
right,
day.
right.
That's a mature conversation for everybody, if anybody gets my drift.
But yeah, I mean, if you look at the different artists who have done her, she's not always bulked out and flexing her muscles. So, I mean, I have no problem with that. I mean, yeah, I mean, I am not someone who's about to go on American Gladiator with bulging biceps, but I mean, I am sort of strong from all the athletics that I do, and I shadow myself so the muscles stand out a little bit more, which makes body painting even a little more intense because I have to go back and shade after the base paint is on. But with the new show, I mean, the biggest question I get is, have you watched the show? Are you going to cosplay her anytime soon? Are you going to do the new Jen? And I'm just like, I'll get to it eventually. I got so many other
so
doing.
Well, what has that been like? Because obviously it has boosted the popularity of the character.
Yes.
It has also brought in a lot of more eyes to it, a lot more questions. And you're doing it before. Now you're sort of primed and centered. You got coverage of characters who look like her, and they picked 10, cosplayers who looked like She-Hulk or the real life She-Hulk. You were on that list. And then what is that like? Because again, this was like another media moment for you.
Oh yeah.
Where
that was great because before the show came out, that list came out. And I mean, there are a few people who do She-Hulk even before the show started. And to be listed as one of the top 10 She-Hulks in the country, I thought it was like, thank heaven, someone actually recognized all the work I do painting myself to portray this character. But I mean, I love the character. From when she came out in 1980, it's just been like, I just love that girl. She's just such a crazy fun character. So she's in my top 3: Wonder Woman, Supergirl, She-Hulk. Those are my 3. I mean, I do many more, but those are my 3. And that to get recognized to be She-Hulk, that was a huge moment for me.
Yeah, no, because I think it's just interesting, and then obviously, show comes out, and then everything just explodes with it, and then obviously She-Hulk has created a very interesting reaction where some people loved it, some people hated it. I've seen only parts of it just because I'm busy and a lot of stuff going on in my personal life.
Yep.
I'm an anime weeboo first and foremost. And so Disney is not at the top of my list. Working a 40-hour work week, we're doing this, running an eBay business. I really don't have time to watch She-Hulk as much as I would like to watch She-Hulk.
Right. But we don't go to we go to Hulu. We watch our anime there.
I don't even watch anime on Hulu anymore. I watch it on Crunchyroll. I'm like the OG of this, where I'm watching stuff that hasn't even hit the US yet. I love my anime, and that's my whole thing. But again, there's only so much time. But
Mhm.
I thought the first 2 episodes of She-Hulk were really fun. I don't think it's the best thing Disney has produced as far as comics. I thought that WandaVision was better. I really did. I thought WandaVision was clever. I thought that they were referencing a lot more stuff, and I really thought that it was nice. And I thought it was pleasant. I thought the I Love Lucy reference in WandaVision was great. I
Mhm.
thought that WandaVision collectively was more of a unifier than She-Hulk is. But
Yeah.
She-Hulk, from what I know from people, has created a love it or hate it reaction.
Yes. Yes. There's those who um, watch it because they're big Marvel fans, and hey, here's yet another Marvel show, and they just get involved with it and just love the way she's portrayed. And then there's those who are like, this isn't what it was like. This isn't canon to the comic books. What did they do to the character? Okay, we don't like this show.
Yeah, I think it's that. I also think that there's a bunch of people who are like, look, we feel that they took a concept and then they didn't go far enough, or they didn't capture her
Right.
essence, or they've made it, too to one side on an issue, or they've taken it away from the core Marvel element, because She-Hulk
Right.
is sort of a mutant a little bit, and
Mhm.
like Hulk, and it's kind of like, now you can go and take that route, or people have no idea what She-Hulk is, and then they
Right.
view this and then they think it's X, when this isn't She-Hulk the comics. So the comics,
Mhm.
it's dialed down a little bit. This is definitely turned up the show from what I know about She-Hulk, but it's not too far off of the comics in reality.
Not too far off, but for purists, they'll be like, "No, that's not how she got started, and it wasn't in this place, it was in this place, and she didn't really train with her cousin, and what was all this about, and where's her buddies? Because, I mean, she's buddies with Scarlet Witch, and where's that happening? And,
Yeah.
I mean,
It,
Scarlet Witch
it,
helped her with a wardrobe. That doesn't happen on the show."
it, it's also weird now because the Marvel universe is really jacked up. Marvel did a great job for the first 20 movies, and they also, though, Endgame messed up a bunch of stuff.
Mhm.
And going into Phase 5 and Phase 6 and Phase 7, there are real questions on how everything fits together.
Exactly.
And Thor, Love and Thunder wasn't exactly a great movie. It wasn't exactly a solution to the problem. And they don't need a reboot or a reset, but they need to almost get the train back on track, because
Right, right, right. Um,
it's tricky.
Apparently, when all this mess was going on and people were saying, "Oh, God, it's just another Marvel money grab. Why should we watch it?" And then people started saying, "Well, this is the canon universe, not this is the canon universe." And then someone from Marvel Studios said, "No, the MCU is Earth 616." And we're like, "No, it's not." It's just like, what did you just do? You just totally messed up everything by saying that. And now to try to straighten all that out, because Earth 616 in the comics is just so much different from what is being presented in the MCU, to make everything right. I don't know how that's going to happen.
It's so complicated, and it's a disaster. It's
Mhm.
Marvel isn't producing bad movies. They just don't have canon now, and with the Disney stuff and everything fitting in, it just doesn't work. And it's going to reach a point that, when the Fantastic Four and the X-Men get into all this, it's going to be a bloodbath, and they're going to have to hard reset. So
Right.
they'll have about 50 movies in, and then they're gonna have to do a hard reset. Um, when what they really should have done is that they should have created not they should have created, outside stories
Mm.
that just take place, that are in the Marvel universe,
Right.
but at
Mesh.
exit points, and swing outward, but then swing back in. And
Mhm.
it would have been so much easier if they did that, which
Right.
is what DC should do anyway. DC should legitimately, in their movie, they should have a narrow main line where they should do 3 to 4 movies that are all canon, and then they should have DC Black. And DC Black is the Joker. DC Black would be all these weird stuff that isn't canon, but it's just a good DC movie.
Right, right, because we
That would make DC so much money that they would be happier than a pig rolling in shit.
want. Yeah, well, I mean, we do want to be entertained by the characters too, but there comes a line with how much is entertainment and how much is what the heck did you do with our character?
It's a fascinating line, and it's a very interesting debate. And this is what a lot of me and my comic friends, especially in indie comics, talk about: is that when do you relinquish a character? When do you sell a character? And then when do you say, hey, I'm going to do X? I mean, with a character, or get rid of it. And this is one of the things that Scott Snyder, who was writing Batman and was on the New 52. I mean, great. He did a lot of work with Batman, made a lot of money, wrote a lot of books with
Right,
Batman, but he also left writing Batman right at the top of his career to go create his own characters for a good reason, so that he could have movie control, he could have a lot of other control,
right.
and it was intentional, and it's super interesting. But that's a different conversation for a different day. Um, but I do want to talk and back out of all of these, and I do want to talk about something that's interesting with you.
Okay.
You are an older cosplayer.
Yeah.
That's I think the safest way I can say that. And what is that like? Because I've spoken to a variety of older cosplayers as of lately. I spoke to Venture Bros a while back. I
Okay.
spoke to Cause I'm Nikki. I've spoken to a few other people, and I think it's fascinating. I just spoke to Jordan. I can't think of her name. She has all these Gundam stuff, and she's done stuff with Capcom. I just spoke to her, and it's interesting because I hate to say this, but there's all these older cosplayers who don't get attention.
Mm-hmm.
What is that like? Because I think that, unfortunately, I hate using the word ageism. I prefer the word age discrimination.
Okay.
But even still, it's the same basic premise where somebody's 50 and then they can't cosplay, or they're not going to get as much attention as, the 28-year-old.
Right,
Like,
right, right.
but I don't really get it, and I think it's weird. And I think the whole cosplay entity's gotten jacked up, for lack of a better word. I think there is too much money in it. I think it's also gone down an area of lewdness. And look, anybody can do whatever they want. I'm a capitalist, but I also think that it's gone down this path of OnlyFans and Patreon and photo shoots. And, there's a girl and she's attractive, and well, we need to get somebody at our con and have that pretty girl at the front and center, so we sell tickets.
Right.
And I get the business side of it, but I don't think it's been good for the reality of cosplay. I
No,
don't.
no, you're right. You're absolutely right. Um, I've seen it from multiple angles because I also work as a post editor for several photographers in the lower Michigan area. And I know that a lot of them are like, we could go the easy way and just get girls in wigs and bikinis, and that will bring up our likes and make us, grow. But we also want to show actual good cosplays. And it's hard because sometimes we'll get comments like, oh gosh, I had a comment once on one of my Bulmas that I look like Bulma who's been on meth for a week. And I was like, well, thank you very much.
It's tricky because this is something that I struggle with. I'm an interviewer, right? So if I was a pretty girl and I was interviewing in a bikini, my viewership would be significantly up. There's an Instagram channel that just followed me, and they do unboxings and
Okay.
reviews of action figures and Lego sets, and it's some former porn stars and models and active porn stars, and they're in their bra and panties and
Oh,
bikinis. And how
oh,
the hell do I compete with that? I can't. And so, for a lot of reasons, the main reason is that I'm a guy. In case anybody didn't know, hi, how you doing? Um, but even still,
mhm.
let's say that you're, not in that sector. How can you compete where I could review a Lego set and I can know everything about it, and I know a lot about Legos. I know a lot about trading cards, but I'm not attractive to look at an eye candy. And it really is super interesting, this sector, and I think it's a real problem in cosplay.
It
Just
is,
like
it
that.
is indeed, and it's not just social media, but it's actually also like cons, And that's where I really noticed it. A few years ago, I was at a con and I would see fabulous builds, Mandalorians, and things from anime that are gigantic armor that would take weeks and months to build. And people would just ignore them and go to the cute girls who were about, teens, early 20s, wearing their little minimal outfits and their cute wigs. And that's where all the photographers would go.
So,
And my main photographer was there with me, and he was like, one of the photographers went up to him and said, "Well, I only shoot the pretty young girls." And I was like, "Really? So that's how it's going to be?"
so I got 2 stories on this too.
So
I had a friend.
I actually started an account that's on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook called Cosplay Over 40. And we're in past our 3rd year now, and we just feature cosplayers who are 40 and above. And Kazan Nikki is one of our cosplayers. And we have people from every continent except for Antarctica that we have featured. And we get all these stories about thank you, thank you, thank you. I get so frustrated. I've thought about quitting because I put so much work into my cosplays. I don't get anyone that notices me when I'm at cons, or thank you for finding a community where we can meet other 40 plus people and support each other. And it's really a nice thing to see that we want to cosplay. We don't care.
It's interesting. It's interesting you bring this up about the girls and all that stuff. And look, I'm all for anybody making money, however you make your money, however you sleep at night, that's fine. And look, there's been plenty of people who have a lot of, fans who have been on my show, and they're nice people. But what I find is that a lot of also these people, they're not so nice. They look nice, they act nice, but when you start getting into them, there's a lot of shit in their fucking head.
There's
And
a lot of backstabbing.
I mean, look, I know horrible stories. I have friends who have, told me horrible stories and have left, certain industries and have backed off and worked with some top people. And they're like, yeah, these people aren't that great. I had a friend, I don't think he's going to mind me dropping his name, Cap Santiago, and he's a male cosplayer. He did a calendar. He had a hard time finding a photographer, and he was shooting a male calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a hard time finding a photographer because all these guy photographers said, "I don't want to shoot you."
Right.
And I said to him, I said, "Well, that's kind of sexist." And then it took him a minute to realize I was saying it not because against him, but against the fact that they didn't want to shoot. And
exactly.
if you're a male photographer and you only shoot women, this is the opportunity. This is a media moment.
Mm-hmm.
And you go on a media tour, you're going to get so much attention out of it. And I think it's the dumbest thing ever is that this is a golden opportunity. A woman photographer wound up shooting a bunch of his shots in his calendar, but I was like, this is an opportunity that makes sense for a guy who only shoots girls. Take a step outside of the box, shoot a male photographer's calendar, and then spin that into a media,
right,
garage. And you're going to have people saying, "Why'd you do that?"
And now you have awesome male cosplayers out there. It's that they all deserve credit because they're just fabulous. And a lot of guys just don't get noticed because they're not girls.
So I ran a Kickstarter in January. The way I function is I will only have a male cosplayer on my metal cards. I will not have a female on my metal cards. I refuse. And it sounds sexist, but I'm like, well, you guys get all the opportunities anyway, for the most part. I had a gay black male cosplayer on my metal card, and guy wasn't known. He's now known. It's DJ Croft, and DJ's doing a fantastic job. And I had the foresight to understand and spot talent before everybody else did. It had nothing to do with him being gay. It had nothing to do with him being black. It had to do with the fact that I'm a fan of Tomb Raider. And he did a male Laura Croft, which I thought was brilliant.
Awesome.
And he does a male Jill Valentine, which is funny too. And I'm a Resident Evil guy. And I'm like, I just saw talent. And DJ's just a nice guy. But I asked legitly 5 different male cosplayers, and none of them wanted to do it but DJ. And I'm like, this is an opportunity because guess what? Your audience is not my audience. And you're going to get, we produced 130 metal cards. He got half of them. So now he had merch for free. I didn't pay him, but I paid him in merch. So now you could sell those metal cards for $12.50 to $15 a pop.
Awesome.
he sold a bunch of them. So now he has merch, and he has official merch. And so if I run another cosplay metal card, whether I'm doing it with DJ or I'm doing it with another male cosplayer, it's a merch arrangement because it makes sense.
Right. Yeah, no, I've had guys tell me that they'll be at cons and photographers will go up and take pictures of the girls that they're with, and then they'll just lower their camera and walk away. And that just breaks my heart because, guys are awesome cosplayers and they put so
I
much
think this is what I think a guy should do. Seriously, if I'm a male cosplayer, what I would do, I would take out my phone, I would call out that photographer. I would call him out. And I would call him out and I would actually put him on the spot.
Mhm.
And people don't understand that. I think that there has to be an element of shame to this. I got no problem saying it. And the reason why I say it is the second you call it out, it's going to create a discussion. There's
Right.
going to be backlash, but there's going to be a bunch of people say, you got a good point.
Mhm.
You got a really good point. And then that photographer is going to be in a hot seat for a
Right.
little bit, and he's
People
going to
are
get
gonna be
sympathy,
waiting. Yeah.
and he's going to get a little attacking. And you know what? There might be a female who says, you know what? There's a good point here. There's a good point, and it's going to force a discussion. See,
Mhm.
what I say, I talk about money, and I got my comic class. What I say, and I've said this before, and it's going to sound fucked up, but you got a bunch of people in the cosplay who want to go see that girl who's in their 20s, and she looks good, she's attractive, she's well endowed, and they want to take a picture of her, but they're not sleeping with her. They don't stand a chance with her. And what I say when I talk about investing, I say, look, at the end of the day, what's going to happen is that you could learn and take your money and invest it and learn how to do this skill and have money. And then you can get whatever you want in your life when you're 35, be financially free. And, you'll have people coming after you, and then you can choose whatever you want.
Right.
And versus not having to worry about that and pretending. And that's what I think it is. That's what I really think it is. I think you have a bunch of people. And then what winds up happening is that when you get to 35 and you're married and you got a kid, you don't look at that. Because if you do, your wife hits you on the head and smacks you and you're sleeping on the couch.
Right.
Next to the kid crying, and then you got to go buy your wife flowers for the next week. I don't think women have a problem with bad girl art. I don't think that they want, you to go look at the top cosplayer who's really hot and to be waiting in line for an hour and a half so you can get your picture with her. I
Right.
don't really think that happens when you're 35 or when you're 32 getting married in 2 weeks. I think usually the wife or the girlfriend gets a little pissed off about that. Usually they do.
Because it's fantasy. I mean, if you think about it, cosplay is fantasy. And
I don't think it's that. I think it's something else. I really do. I think it's the idea that it is who people like taking pictures with attractive people, and I think it's more than that. I think that that's part of it. I really do. I don't think it's a celebrity. I
no.
think with some of these cosplayers, it's a little deeper and it's a little more messed up, and there's a whole psychological male mentality.
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of it. I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I have found on social media is that a lot of guys follow because they kind of look at it as it's like a dating or sex service. You're dressing up, hey, and then they'll send you like pictures that you really don't want to see.
The what winds up happening on OnlyFans, it's actually really interesting. I just started reading about this. Is a guy will follow a girl, and then it becomes like a ghost girlfriend experience. And then what starts happening is that they'll start cutting off, and then they'll start ghosting the girl, and then they start disappearing.
Oh boy.
And because it actually triggers things in the back of your brain, and you could have the exact same experience. And this is why OnlyFans is horrific. And with the cosplay stuff, it's very similar, where it creates actually a dopamine effect. And so when people subscribe to Patreons and OnlyFans, they get addicted, and then it becomes a girlfriend thing, but it's not real. And then it creates a whole bigger issue, and there's a lot of problems that occur.
Yeah.
And I think we're not necessarily there with every single cosplayer, but we're inching to that point, and it's already started to happen, and it's a problem. And I think that the cons don't help, and I think that it doesn't help cosplay. I don't think it helps cosplay because I think it's the 1% versus the 99%. And I
Mhm.
think that that's what it creates. And so everybody thinks the 1% is the OnlyFans and the top echelon.
Right, and there's so much more than that.
If you take a step back and you just go up on the hill, you'll see the whole landscape,
Mhm.
the whole landscape. And it's very interesting. There's a reason why I only like interviewing people who have less than about 30,000 fans on Instagram. I find that those people are more interesting in cosplay than the person who has a million. I also find that the person who has a million doesn't give as much of a damn
Right.
than the person who has 30,000. Just not every person who has a million followers is like that, but a lot more are like it. And I don't find that people who have a million followers on Instagram are that interesting. And honestly, a lot of these people don't have a good engagement rate. They don't. That's the other thing too. You could look up engagement rates, and I'm like, man, these people don't have a good engagement rate. Jessica Nigeria has like a 6% engagement rate. She's got 4 million followers. 6% of your audience. 6% doesn't get me out of bed. It barely gets me to work. If somebody said, Andrew, I'm only going to pay you 6% of what you're really worth, I wouldn't leave my bed. I just wouldn't. It doesn't interest me. I mean, you got to pay me what I'm absolutely worth, and that's the problem. I mean, and that's me being generous with her. I mean, I've looked up her engagement. It's shit. It is, and most of these people who are in the upper echelon, their engagement rate sucks. Versus if you look at somebody who has 15,000 followers, they might have 4,000 likes on every single one of their Instagrams. But guess what? That's a higher engagement rate.
Right.
They have real fans.
Yeah.
Those fans, if I interview them, a good chance a bunch of them are gonna watch the interview.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what a concept, right?
Yeah.
We get people canceled on this show. This show legitly talks about this, and this is what I did last night. We shy away from nothing because I don't want to take money out of anybody's mouth, but I also am at the point that I think this discussion needs to happen, and I just think that anybody who doesn't have a nice pair and is over the age of 35 in cosplay doesn't get fair attention, doesn't get the same opportunities.
Well, no, I would agree with that. I mean, there's a point where there's so many people who are doing lewd versions of characters, and those of us who don't are like, well, okay. Do I really want those kind of followers? Because that we want to be able to interact with people who actually understand what we're doing or are curious about what we're doing versus, oh, look, she's got a rack. I like that picture. And then, what kind of interaction do I want with that? I really don't.
It also raises a question that if you're 28 and you're doing that and you're a woman, I mean, where are you going to be when you're 36? And also, do you want to have a family? Do you want to shelter your children? These are all great questions. No.
Oh,
They
no, I understand. Absolutely.
I mean, it's so I don't think some of these cosplayers have actually thought this through.
Right.
And look, I'm not saying you have to have kids. I'm not saying you have to do anything. But if you do want to go down that path, there is a good question of that saying, it's out on the internet. You might close your OnlyFans down, but guess what? It's out on the fucking internet. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't disappear. Nothing on the internet disappears. Things can be buried, but they don't disappear. So
Right. No.
I think that's something else that has to be thought about as well. When you go and you do something, I mean, it's once it's on OnlyFans and you have people paying, it's out in public.
Mm-hmm. No, and not even just OnlyFans, because Instagram, for example, they aren't all that great about what they block, and someone could be wearing a G-string and band-aids on her breasts, and that's it. And hey, it's okay for Instagram, and which is interesting because 13 is the age for Instagram supposedly. But I know cosplayers who only cared about their numbers and went from being canon cosplayers to being hardly wearing anything cosplayers. And it's just been interesting seeing how they have changed. I don't want to say devolved or evolved. They've just changed. And I just wonder, because there's one I know has a son. And I keep wondering, wow, what's he gonna think if he ever sees those photos?
It's interesting. I mean, I've seen some stuff on Instagram, and I'm like, okay. And then there's a whole nother thing, and not to get all the way down the road, but there's a whole business on ManyVids, which is obviously a clip site, and there's a section that's just cosplay, and it's cosplay porn, for lack of a better word. And so I mean, this is a question that I have for every cosplayer now, and I'm not looking for an answer. But where's the line? Where's the line between something being suggestive? So I'll give you an example. If somebody's playing panty or stocking with panty and stocking with garter belt, I don't think that's crossing the line.
No,
but then I mean, that's the name of the show, right? That's the name of the character. But then we get to the point where, okay, you do a lewd set or a suggestive set, okay. But then when does it become soft porn? When does it become porn? When does it just become a hardcore scene? I mean, where are the lines? Because all of these cosplayers, when they went out and started doing lewd sets and started doing OnlyFans and other things, some of them don't go anywhere near that, but then others dive into it and get into it. Some of them have nude shots, and like, I'm confused as just a consumer where the line is, and as an interviewer, I'm even more confused because I'm like, okay, cool. Where are we going here, and where are the lines? Have the lines been redrawn? And I don't know. And it's a great question.
And I mean, one character comes to mind right away, and that's Velma. Velma from Scooby-Doo. She is probably the character that I hardly see at all as canon, and mostly I see in a really non-existent top and maybe a bikini, and like just not what I would watch with Scooby-Doo. And
I see with Daphne too.
Yeah,
Daphne too, very much like a G-string Daphne. You see that a lot. But like, yeah, no, I don't know where the line is, and it's confusing because 5 years ago I knew where the line was, and I don't know where the line is today.
No, it's a big blur. It's a huge blur. And I mean, cosplay is for everybody, and if someone wants to do a version that's a little more risque, more power to them. But gosh, there's risque, and then there's doing a video with you shaking your butt cheeks at the camera and calling that cosplay, and I'm just like, really?
That's another thing too, is that there gets to a point where if you're in Pikachu ears, but you're modeling, is that really cosplay? I mean, I don't know what the definition of cosplay is either now. 5 years ago, again, I knew what it was. And that's the problem that I think is the biggest issue.
Right.
Is that there's no, and look, what I mean by a definitive issue is that if I say cosplay is dressing up as your favorite comic, anime, or nerddom and going to a con and having a good time, that to me is a pretty reasonable definition of cosplay. Whether you're doing that to make money, whether you're doing that to just have a good time, whether you're doing it because your friends are doing it, or whether you're doing it for whatever reason, that's cool, or you're trying to get attention, whatever it is. To me, that definition can be tweaked up or down. But again, I think that you could add or modify that. But if you say cosplay is me dressing up like Pikachu and then twerking on TikTok, I don't know if that's cosplay.
Yeah, no, there's
entertaining. Could be enjoyable, could make you rich, but is that cosplay? And that's where I'm at. And I'm confused. And then you throw in age discrimination or ageism, and it's just, I just don't get it. And I think it's gone too far to one side, that it needs to go back.
Right.
I think it will. I think it will eventually get to a point where people are like, this has gone off the chain.
Right. I recently had a lively discussion, to put it politely, with
this wasn't lively enough for you?
with a cosplayer that I know, who was just kind of flipping out because I have a belief, like we just discussed, about where the line is for cosplays. And she's like, but you cosplay Vampirella. and that's all sexual. So you're such a hypocrite. And I'm like, this is canon. It's like, yeah, she dresses in that little sling outfit, but that's canon. It's not like I am twerking in that little sling outfit. I am doing the poses from her comics. And they just couldn't get that. And I'm just like,
So I think that there's a difference where I think that cosplay can be sexual, right?
mhm.
So I think that is not even a canon issue. I mean, if there's a character that does something that is canon, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Sunstone. Sunstone is a very sexual comic. There are
Okay.
scenes in Sunstone and outfits in Sunstone that probably should not be worn
Okay.
at a cosplay. They're even questionable if you go to a fetish club.
Oh my.
Okay. Okay. So Sunstone is about sex, and it's an amazing book. It has sold probably almost like 5 million to 6 million graphic novels at this point,
Okay.
which is insane. That's an extremely high number. It's romance. It doesn't demonize sex. It treats sex in a very interesting way, in a very romantic way, and in a very adult, and it makes it not the enemy, for lack of a better word. But there's things in that are canon, and then if you cosplayed it, if the way you did it from the book, you did it right. You did it canon. There's things that shouldn't be done. There are scenes from Vampirella that should not be cosplayed.
Yeah.
But I don't think that if it's on the cover of a Dynamite book, which I think you have a few of those, that if you wore that to a con, I don't think that's the same thing as being Velma in a tight top that's a little too small on a G-string. I
Right.
think that there's a big difference. Now, I think that there is a question though where, again, where's the line? I think that you could have a sexy Velma at a con. Like, I think you could have Velma in a mini skirt, for
Right.
instance, at a con. If you could have Velma in like, her sweater is now more like a belly top. I think you could have Velma playing coy, going jinkies in a very interesting, fun way. But like, I think that, again, though, you could play and you can be flirtatious, which is what Vampirella is.
Mhm.
Vampirella or sexual, but it's not crossing the line.
Right.
I think that's just my take on it. But again, hey, look, if somebody wants to do whatever they want, I mean, as long as the con's not going to stop you. But I do think this is a complicated issue, because I think where I draw the line is that we're going to loot sets where you're basically a topless Pikachu. And is that cosplay at that point?
Yep.
If you were a topless Vampirella, I would then start questioning things, right?
Mhm. No.
So I mean, there's probably a scene where Vampirella's topless. Would not be surprised in a
Oh,
Vampirella.
oh yeah. When she's in the Blood River and Draculon, absolutely. But
But
yeah,
should that be worn at a con?
exactly.
And it goes to the idea that if a con is meant for everyone, I don't have a kid yet, but I don't want to bring, if I had a 7-year-old son or a daughter, I don't want to bring my 7-year-old son or daughter to go see Velma in a G-string, and pretty much that, I'm not going to feel too comfortable. And I think that's what's going to be the breaking point. I really do. Because the second a vendor gets hit or a celebrity makes less money because somebody like me says, look, I'm all for flirtatious. If I was going by myself, I wouldn't care. But my daughter just saw something that
Right.
upset her.
Exactly. And
I'm not coming back, and I'm pissed.
that's what I don't think a lot of people understand is, um, do we want our 13-year-old kids who really like certain superheroes to type in the hashtag for, like, say, Supergirl, and suddenly find a picture of Supergirl with little red pasties on it and a blue G-string? It's like, yikes. I had a con moment once that I was midnight, which again is covered but is suggestive, and I was with two cosplayers who were panty and stocking. And we were just like standing off by ourselves because we're like, well, everyone else is like, the class 1A from My Hero or other stuff. And And these parents rushed up to us with their little boys, maybe 5 or 6 years old, and said, "Can they get a picture with you?" And we're like, okay, so here we are posing as panty stocking at midnight with these two little kids. And they were like, thank you, and we're like, do they even understand what they just posed their kids with?
No. I mean, when I go to a con and I'm presenting on a panel, my language. So on this show, I say whatever I want because it's explicit. Everybody knows it's explicit. But again, you don't see me posting nude photos on this show. There might be a suggestive photo every once in a while, or if I'm talking about bad girl art, there's something there. But when this goes into podcast format, it's explicit for a reason. My YouTube channel is explicit. There's an explicit warning essentially on my YouTube channel. But when I'm presenting at a con, my language, I say every once in a while I'll drop an F-bomb when I need to make a real point, but I get one. You know, you don't hear me cursing like a sailor. On this show, I'm going to say whatever the fuck I want to say. But that's the thing too, is that I think, you know, cosplay has to follow those rules too. But again, I think it'll change really when somebody gets really pissed off and says, my daughter just saw something that she shouldn't have seen, and I'm angry. And then they really get a hold of the connier, and then that connier understands. And then a bunch of other people call that con guy up. And then the head of the con like, okay, maybe we got to reestablish parameters.
Yeah.
That's when it'll change, because there's going to be a point where something crosses the line and then the line goes backwards. But I digress. It's a real issue, and I think that 25-year-olds don't think about it, but I think people over 40 think about it, and I think it's a wisdom issue.
Yeah.
More so than anything else.
Because, you know, those of us who are 40 and up, we have kids and we want them to get into our world. We want them to love comics. We want them to love anime. We want to bring them to cons. And then we see something at a con and we're like, oh my gosh, maybe I made the wrong choice there. And yeah, it's like walking a tightrope these days. You just don't know.
It's very complicated, and I think you know what it is. It's also the idea that, you know what it is, if I have a daughter or a son and they want to cosplay, I want to make sure that they enjoy it, but I don't want them to ever feel like I need to have an OnlyFans and when I'm 18, you know,
right,
naked to do it, because I don't think when they're 30 they're going to be too fucking happy about that. Like I think it's going to create a bigger problem. And I don't have kids yet, but I'm 29. I'm going to be 30 relatively soon in the next few months. And obviously, I'm now starting to think about this stuff. And I'm maybe 2, 3, 4 years away from having a kid. But the second I have a kid, I'm going to be terrified for my kid. We live in a crazy world. Exactly. And the internet's a very dangerous place. Yep. And I don't think cons are much safer on what can be seen, what is actually presented. And there's a lot of things that I've seen at cons that are problematic. And, you know, I don't have a problem with it being sold. I have a problem with it being displayed publicly.
Right. And you also don't want the kids to think that that's what they have to do in order to be considered cosplayers, because it's not.
Yeah, no, it's tricky. It's tricky, and it's a complicated issue. And I don't know the answer to it. And I'm sure I'm going to get bad feedback for this. I know what people are going to say to me on this. So, well, you're not a pretty cosplayer. Oh, you're not making the money they're making. And newsflash, I make plenty of money buying and selling comics. I don't want cosplay money. I don't need cosplay money. Would it be nice if I was getting some serious money to be flown around the entire country? Sure. But I do all right in my own profession. So that's something to keep, in mind, everybody. But I digress. Now that I got myself canceled and probably hated by half the cosplay community, that's pretty much everything that's going on with that. So yeah, let's talk about cons or religion next. But before I give you a chance to self-promote, how do you view cons? Because I haven't been to a con in a while, and how have they been?
Well, the pandemic really put a wrench into going to cons. And a lot of people are up in arms about having to have vaccination proof or proof of a negative test, or you have to wear a mask on the premises. That's a big thing right now, at least here in Michigan. People don't want to have to wear a mask, and there's a big uproar at a con that's coming up, mainly because they are requiring masks. And, sorry, we still are in a pandemic, but we still want to have people coming to our con and enjoying themselves, because I, for one, love going to cons. I love seeing all the different cosplays. I love going to fandom meetups and meeting people, like, say, all the people from, say, all the DC meetups. I love going to DC meetups. I know when the next one is, and I'm planning on being there. Or the Nintendo meetups. I'm hoping to go to that one. And I enjoy that very much. And that's what I like about going to cons. It's lots of fun. I mean, some people go because, hey, look, there's all sorts of vendors, or there's artists. They always buy art from the artists. And, there's so many different aspects of going to a con. It's not just going around and staring at the people in costumes. There's very talented artists. There are vendors that sell all sorts of collectibles. And there's just so much to see and do that there's always something for everybody. And I'm hoping to attend more now that people are getting more aware of what's required in the way of being vaccinated, wearing your mask, being socially distant. That doesn't always happen. We went to a con this summer, and 2 days later, we were all down with COVID. We're blaming the wedding party in the elevator for that one, though. But yeah, no, I've got a con coming up on Friday that I'm going to, and I got a con in November that I'm planning on going to, and we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, no, again, I haven't been to a con since COVID really hit, and it's been 2.5, almost 3 years. I had a rough go at one of my last cons, and decided to take a break, and then COVID hit.
Right.
So that's how I felt, and I haven't looked back. I mean, I get everything I want online, and honestly, I mean, when you're doing 150 interviews across so many different sectors, I really don't need to go to a con. The only thing I miss is presenting and having, a fun audience. But again, it's the internet's my audience now. So it's super cool. And what I found is that people watch a lot of this stuff on replay anyway. They don't watch it live, but they do watch it on replay. So it's super cool in that fashion too. So, and I got a really cool piece of content. But I do miss presenting a lot, because there is nothing cooler than blowing somebody's mind away in person as
Right.
they see and like, oh man, it's super cool. I didn't think of that topic in that way ever. And then they're like, oh, did you ever think about it like this? I'm like, I haven't. That's actually really cool. And I don't know how to respond to you. But what's your email? And give me like a week to think about it. Because that's happened. I've gotten into some pretty cool conversations with people that way.
Yeah, connection. Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting to talk about mental health on Attack on Titan with somebody who's like a mental health. I'm like, I said to myself, like, I don't have an answer for you right now. I'm sorry, but like, it's a really good point. Like, and the person like was just, they didn't expect me to even say. They thought I was gonna have an answer. I'm like, I don't have an answer for you. I have to think about this. Like, I said, can I have your email? Because I'm now so curious. Like, oh, it was a very, very interesting thing. And I'm like, I didn't think about it like that. I didn't think about something. And I'm like, I don't have an answer for you.
Wow.
But I'm gonna think about it now. But anyhow, enough about me.
About it. God, mental health and attention.
I am curious now. I have to ask you another question. What do you think about the Mario movie? Because that's I mean, Chris Pratt as Mario. It's a little torn on that one.
Well,
I think I'll tell you my thoughts. I think the best thing they ever did was not go live action. To go
right. Oh my gosh, I am so thankful for that.
We had a good Mario, live action once, and that thing is epic. That thing is the best thing to do. It's
Lou Albano?
What would you say?
Captain Lou Albano?
I think so. It's like Mario and Luigi live, and it's great. It's great. It's absolutely wonderful, and it's brilliant. It's like a movie, and then they're like dealing with Bowser. Oh, it's so good. It's so bad and good at the same time. It's like you just get a bottle of something, and oh man, you get like a 6-pack. Oh, you're good. You're good. Like your Friday night is set.
Gosh, well, Um, I guess the jury's still out on it. I am very grateful that it is not live action because I was afraid it would be. Um, I was really expecting Mario to sound more like Mario. You know, there's no little Italian plumber accent in there. Maybe it'll show up later in the movie. I thought Jack Black, in the trailer when he is Bowser going up against all the little penguin guys, sounded wonderful as Bowser. And then he laughed, and all I got was Poe from Kung Fu Panda after that. So I don't know. I'm not dead. I'm not saying I'm not going to see the movie, but I'm going to wait and then see the movie and see what I think after that. Because I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I'm torn. I'm torn, and I'm gonna go see it though. It'll be fun. But April 7th, I think I'm probably gonna go see it that night. It's gonna be good. It's
Yeah,
gonna be a fun time. I don't know if the movie's gonna be good,
about
but it's
it.
gonna be a fun time.
Yeah, I've had people are like, well, you know, he should have been like this originally. It's like if you want to go back to how they should have been originally, then you're gonna need to totally forget about Princess Peach because she wasn't even Princess Peach in the game when he had to rescue her from Donkey Kong. So don't talk about going to original because it evolved. Maybe this is yet another evolution. Who knows?
Who knows? But anyway, we've been speaking for over 2 hours. I've had a blast, and I got you and me both canceled. I guarantee you that. It's a new thing. All of this year, all last year, everybody gets canceled on this show. It's just how we run it. The thing is that I don't owe anybody any money, and I'm self-funded, so nobody can truly cancel me yet. But anyhow, I do want to give you a chance to self-promote yourself. So where could people find you, bother you, follow you on Instagram, follow your over 40 cosplay? I'm probably going to hit up a bunch of people on that Instagram because that's what November is. At least I'm trying to get 4 cosplayers more for November. Get like 3 more wrestlers. I got a big wrestlers coming on for the 3rd time. Billy Starks is coming on.
Oh, cool.
If you know who Billy Starks is,
Yep.
I'm gonna say she's special. She's a prodigy, and she is the future of wrestling. And that's all I'm gonna say. And that it's a big deal for round 3. But anyway, enough about what I'm gonna promote because I'm gonna promote myself at the end of this anyway. But where can people find you? Because you do run that cool Instagram account as well as you run your own, as well as you got a bunch of other stuff going on. And obviously, where can people support you?
You can find me on Instagram, which is my main place, as well as Facebook and Twitter. I am AMH Cosplays there. I am also the admin for Cosplay Over 40. And I also have a different account called A2 MI Wonder Woman for Ann Arbor, Michigan Wonder Woman, which is my dedicated Wonder Woman account. And I'm also Bulma Briefs USA on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So I maintain all of those. So you can find me pretty much spending 4 or 5 hours a day updating all those accounts.
Well, you have it there, and I'm just going to keep saying it. And you have to support indie. You have to support the creators you love. Again, I personally do not care what you support, but you need to support what you enjoy and what you want to see more of. Also, if these people have merch, if obviously AMH Cosplay has merch, has Buy Me a Coffee, has PayPal, has Cash App, all that stuff helps. $1 goes a long way because my friend says it really well that if everybody gives you $1 and you have 1,000 people giving you $1 every month,
that helps.
A lot of small dollars adds up to a bunch of big money, and a lot of stuff can get done with a bunch of money. $1,000 can definitely fund at least 2 to 2.5 cosplays. I feel, if it's stretched out appropriately, because if you had $1,000, you could buy material in bulk, which means it will get cheaper.
Oh yeah.
And so if you had 12K coming in every year, you would be able to buy materials to fund a bunch of cosplays, and which means more photos, which means more things, which means more conventions you can go to, a variety of other stuff.
Oh,
which means
definitely.
more things can be done for the people who want to support you. And again, If everybody gave you $1, it's not that complicated because that's $12 a year. So that's something to keep in mind, that a
Right.
lot of small dollars can add up and really make a difference.
Well, I am AMH Cosplays on coffee as well. So if anyone wants to buy me a coffee, I'd
So
be
it's just, yeah, no, it's true. A lot of small money adds up. It really does. Um, and then I know this because people definitely throw me a little small money every once in a while, and it does add up. It adds up, and it adds up quickly, and especially if you have a fan base. So I recommend people do that if you like what you see, and it's because it's not enough anymore at this stage just to follow people on social media. You actually have to do more, whether that's even just interviewing, sharing it out, liking it, commenting, introducing somebody to somebody else that can help them or do business or anything, makes a difference. Hell, offering you a free ticket at a con. If you run a con, that's something, because that's worth money. That's worth money. It makes a big difference. Offering you a free table, that could be very helpful too. So anyway, that's just something that I'm throwing out there. You got to support what you like, and it makes a big difference. As far as I'm concerned, obviously all my social media is down below. It's Pop Anime Comics. You can check me out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It's Pop Anime Comics, as well as I do have a private Facebook group, Indie Comic Connect. So if you're into comics or other things relating to comics, you could join. Just fill out the survey and the questions. They're there for a reason. And that reason is because you'd be surprised who doesn't fill it out, and it actually eliminates bad actors. They're not hard questions. It does not cost any money to join. It is a private group for a reason. The only rule is no eBay or porn in the group. That's legitimately the only rule. And you really should only be posting once a day. Seriously, it's not complicated. My comic class is coming end of October, so definitely be on the lookout for that. We are 65% recorded. I'm super, super excited for it. It's going to be a blast, and it's going to be a good one. And again, it's going to be on Udemy. It's going to be at $40 for 18 to 22 hours to learn the basics of comic book investing. So keep that in mind. And I said this before. I said it last night. I can say it. Either you're going to love it and you're going to be like, hey, I'm in. I want to know more. Or you're going to say, man, this was a complete waste of my time. But I'm going to tell you you're wrong. And the reason why you're wrong is because this probably saved you hundreds of thousands of dollars, that there's a million ways how to make money. And if you could eliminate one for $40, you save yourself a boatload of time and money. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be the best $40 if you say comic book investing is too complicated, it's not for me, because then there's 99 other options to make money and you only have to go through those other 99, not 100. So I systematically eliminated an option for you. And then I also have Buy Me a Coffee. It's in my link up above, down below, or whatnot. So you can give me money all day. I appreciate it. I won't say no. I like money, so I'm not going to say no. And then that's pretty much everything that I got. And maybe this Saturday, me and my friends might be doing a comic book hangout, talking about, as fans, do we deserve an ending to comics? And it's going to be controversial. It's going to be interesting, but it's not going to be controversial the same way religion and politics are. We will all end with liking each other and potentially half drunk. So on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
If you love comics and you love cosplayers, be sure to follow the cosplayers that you like and do your best to support them and encourage them, because, we're not just in it for us. We like to bring smiles to people's faces. And we can't do that without your help and your feedback.
Well, I think that's a great place to end. And that is a wrap, everybody.